Hey everybody, welcome again to another Wiser Wednesday. We're here for a fireside chat on parenthood and entrepreneurship, or pair entrepreneurship. Very bad dad joke, I'm sorry. We're here with Perri, founder and CEO of Mastered. So you're delivering lifelong learning in the creative community. And we met like quite a few years ago. I think it was like 2017. Actually skiing. Probably wouldn't be doing so much of that these days with kids. But look, great to have you here, Perri. How you doing?
Very good, thank you very much. And yeah, a long time ago, but like pre-COVID, which feels like a different world ago.
Yeah,
With children, pre-COVID.
adds time to it, doesn't it? Yeah, no, I can't imagine going and doing this. I think we were at Learn and Ski. It's a great event, but and look, you're juggling. We're all juggling, aren't we? So you're just back from a conference now. Like fun fact about you: you once wrote a book on craft that featured quotes from Tracy Emin and Grayson Perry, which is really cool. How'd that happen?
Back in the day, I used to be a journalist, and I just started writing about craft and DIY back
Awesome.
in the day. And I was very fortunate to get to do it for the Guardian, which was where I was working at the time. And inevitably, when you have a Guardian email address, people do things like contact you about writing a book. And so, yeah, I got the chance to do that, which was very cool. And actually, how I met my current co-founder, Adil,
That's
through the
awesome.
book. So yeah, it started out from there.
It's again topical for today. I think didn't Grayson's wife Philippa write the book you wish your parent had read? Have you
Yes,
come across it?
she did. And she
Yeah.
used to work. But yeah, we used to do a little bit of work with her at the magazine I used to work with back in the day. So yes, I met Grayson Perry through Philip Perry through the job I used to have again when I was a journalist and editor pre this. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah. I've
sure.
read it, and then it's almost like I need to read it every year because everything changes. So I need to read it again. I read it actually before I became a parent, so that was quite a different time. I've got a friend who says, when I was a good parent before I became a parent, that was their their slogan. So it is actually quite the case. But let's dive into it before we get going. Like talk to us a bit about Mastered and just tell us what your journey has been there and what the
Yeah.
mission is to some extent. You don't have to
Well, it's
dive too into that sort of
10
thing, but
years
like
this
tell us a bit about
year,
it.
10 years this year, which feels
Oh wow.
unbelievable. Like it feels like we started it a second ago, and also suddenly it's been a decade. And I think it's
Congratulations.
really interesting when things come to like that nice round number because you start to think, oh, what's the next decade hold? So, I mean, the mission has pretty much always been the same. It's always been about like so empowering the creative professionals in the new world of work. But what that really means, it's always been about the creative industries. So me and my co-founders have always, all of us have come from different parts of the creative industries, but all of that relatively large niche. It's always been about work, as in it's always been about like outcomes. So it hasn't been about getting a certificate or passing a degree or getting it in that part. It's always been about doing those things in order to have some kind of implication in your career or in the kind of in a world where you're pretty much getting some kind of money from it. So operating in that space, which is a little bit, definitely anchors things. And the last decade has basically been a series of learns and failures of working out through that whole kind of career trajectory of someone's like life from when they first start into work through to when they get up into kind of senior leadership positions. We've been intervening in kind of moments of transition. So when someone's either starting their first business or they're taking their first hire or they're moving into their first leadership role, we've essentially found ourselves working at those intersections and supporting people through those journeys in various different ways. And to where we come to now, which is doing that with predominantly in the games industry, but also kind of film, TV, and kind of more broadly immersive. Um, and working in both kind of very deep technical skills, but also very also critical soft skills. And doing that both with kind of private funding from companies who support us to do that, also working with public funding for the first time,
Well,
and allowing people to do that for free or for kind of massive subsidies. So, yeah. That's what
Well,
I.
I know I really like that concept of intervening in transition, moments of like transition in time is like that's so powerful. Yeah, that's the kind of the journey, isn't it? It's almost like the hero's journey. We keep coming back to the beginning and off we go again. And so yeah, that's fantastic. So you're there to help people at that the
And it's
next.
and the meta thing about it is that we're also going on that journey of we're also people who are going through our careers and launching our first business and becoming senior leaders for the first time in the
Yeah.
creative industries while trying. So it's all very meta. Sometimes I think we're basically just solving our own problems.
Honestly, the amount of time, yeah, they say you should listen to the advice you give, right? That's just it's so true. It's probably because that's what comes to you because you know that you've been dealing with it yourself. So, yeah, no, very very meta. Like life is meta. So yeah, I think maybe like to sort of preface this as well. We've sort of titled it like parenthood and so on, but it also includes anyone that's trying to balance like home life and work life, and there's people having to look after sort of like parents and partners too. So there's so much to this, and it's almost it's almost the challenge of like the overwhelm of, but wanted to do your best in everywhere, but often it's a real struggle to do so. So I think it's good to cover that at the start. So
People with responsibilities for caring for other people, as
yeah,
well as caring for the people at work.
yeah,
A lot of people to be looking after.
yeah, no, exactly. So great. Yeah, do you want to like talk to us like how long have you been sort of balancing that sort of parenthood and CEO role? Talk us through it.
Yeah. So, Marnie, my daughter is just 2. So, for the last 2 years, it's been figuring that out. I think what I am so fortunate, like luck, just completely lucky to be working with kind of co-founders and a team who are very interested in like how you go on this journey and have kind of essentially committed to going on that journey together, and to be
Yeah,
very open and honest and build that into ultimately the organization, and to try not to shy away from the fact that this is over here and then we do this, like home is over here and then work is over here. There's been very much like an understanding that we're going to go on this journey as like the whole person, which has been great because, well, first of all, so I went through IVF, and so being able to be really honest with my co-founders about the fact that like where I was on that journey and when it didn't
mm,
work, being able to speak to people and go, I I can't do today because this has just happened, and not having to kind of hold anything back was just so incredible. And then
mm,
again, talking about, well, how are we going to deal with going on maternity leave? And so me and my co-founder Grace have had very, very honest conversations about like, you're having a child next. Okay, so we've been, and the wonderful thing about I think the three of us is that we've been very interchangeable, so we can pick up each other's things. And so when Grace first went on maternity leave, I was able to take on some of her things. I can't do it as well as her, but I can do it enough to be able to get through. Similarly,
yeah,
when I went off, I was able to do that. And Adil, my co-founder, had he's just very sadly been looking at handling the death of his parents in
mhm,
a different moment in the last few years. Again, him being able to go off and us be able to take on for him, handling that together has been incredible.
yeah,
And I think the second point of, again, what I'm just incredibly lucky is my husband Johnny. We took shared parental leave, so I did 6 months, and he did 5 months,
oh, amazing.
and that also was a way that I could be essentially out of mastered for 6 months. But I then came back and could kind of come back fully and wonderfully because I knew that my daughter was being looked after by like the person apart from me who loves her the most in the world.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I found I was really able to come back, and I didn't have so many of the challenges that some women have when they come back to work, in that she wasn't starting nursery at the same time. Actually, John had to, he was the one who actually had to deal with a lot of the stuff more
yeah,
traditionally that women have to associated with, is he had to
yeah.
go back to work and she went to nursery at the same time and he had to deal with all that. So
Such a
yeah.
bonkers time. No one tells you that you need to book off like a good few weeks around because they go in, get something, come back home again. Oh my god, that is just so crazy.
So yeah. So yeah, the last couple of years have been figuring out how to do it, but figuring out very proactively how to do it, and having lots of in-depth conversations about how it's done, which I think has been a hell of a lot easier than doing it on my own.
Yeah, yeah. And that again, like, that kind of comes down to the communication and understanding, like, before you kind of get into becoming parents, doesn't it? Like, there's a I don't know, like, whether it's, being male or whatever. I don't think. I mean, I really didn't realize. I don't. I'm really pleased that I've gone on the journey, but I didn't realize what it would be like. I had not. My wife just, we've got two boys. We've got like a 3.5 and a 1.5 year old boys, but they it's brilliant. But I had no idea how bonkers it would be.
Hmm.
And I guess in life, like, my business has been kind of my, like, baby a bit. I think
Oh, yeah.
that's how I've kind of, in a number of them. So I've always sort of treated it like the thing that I'm nurturing and growing. And so, yeah, suddenly, because I was also trying to start up, like consultancy at the time. I went down the consultancy route because I thought this would allow a level of
Yeah.
flexibility. But yeah, it was also around COVID, all those sorts of things, which means that there was added complication going on, and so but it is mad, and that's great. Like, you were able to, like, share that with your partner, and I think that's happening, like, loads more. But it's even if you're sharing it, it's still bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I first met Dill, who I work with, I remember him saying a long time ago, like, hire parents, like, do hire parents because they will be able to solve so many things. And having not had children, and none of my friends had children, I was like, well, cool. Well, that's not always. Lots of people are very biased against people of a certain age, and that's not something that is. But he was just like, no, no, no. Problem solving, like the ability to, like, multitask, the way that you can, like. And now I 100% get it. There are just some things that you just have to get done certainly in a certain way, and you have to juggle this and you have to manage that, and it's such a life skill.
Yeah. No, like, the need for preparation is like, it really bites you if you don't prepare. Like, the night before is so important to, like, how breakfast is going to go, and whether you can even find some socks and, get them out the door. So, I guess on that point, like, what did you ever define what success looked like for you? Sort of, juggling both sort of business and family.
Good question. Did I? I I did have one thing which was very much focused. That was like my goal for the next. So my goal for the first year of her life was creating a secure attachment. Like,
Brilliant.
whatever I was going to do, whatever I like my number one thing was, like, I know fundamental child psychology, things that are going to set her up really well for in life, is if I can do that. And that definitely anchored lots of it kind of helped me make decisions on certain things, like what would be the best thing to do in this situation, or what is going to be optimized for, like, creating that attachment. And then actually, kind of in year two, pretty much the same thing. It was like, that's the kind of number one life goal, and if I can balance everything around that, if that's the, like, again, just find yourself using, like, the language of startups, like, if that's my north star, if that's my number one metric, if that's the moonshot, like, but actually having, like, a single focus thing rather than all these different things that I had to do,
Yeah.
that did kind of help simplify things a little bit. So yes, I kind of borrowed some learnings from the last decade to go, there's, like, one thing that I want to do. And I think also something that helped there is that I've got and I don't know if you were part of it, as part of Tech Nation was the kind of startup accelerator that I think many of us were part of back in the day. The kind of founders forum that was set up as part of that. Our forum is still going. So for
Wow.
anyone who doesn't know what that is, essentially it's a very specific way of meeting with people every couple of months. There's we all started out as kind of founders of businesses, and now people in our forum have sold their businesses or left or different things, but actually having that of someone, or a place to be accountable every 2 months or so, to go, what is your actual kind of goal, what are you taking responsibility for. That was also good to kind of get me into that habit of going, there is one thing that I'm trying to optimize for.
Yeah. No, I love that the attachment piece. We sort of had something a little bit similar, which was we wanted the boys to feel like they could come to like either mum or dad. There wasn't like one that they just naturally went to. And look, I mean, that was the sort of dream. And interestingly, like they've kind of like gone one. The older one has gone more towards mum, and the younger one's more towards dad, and it just it's the way it is. But we did try and give them. We tried to make them feel like there wasn't like a mother, mum or dad role as such. It's just
There you go.
parents. But I mean, look, they do sort of they do naturally sort of play sort of slightly differently with us. So I was going to ask you how your goal evolved over time. Yeah, I wonder, like, come sort of year three, what your
Yeah.
goal would look like. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think probably I spent, like we were talking at the beginning, talking about books that you're reading. Like I spent like time on maternity leave, listening to audiobooks of things and learning about like this stage in like the first year and so of life. And I think I've got a little bit more work to do to kind of understand the next bit and what you might kind of do there. But yeah, it's interesting starting to think about, again, if you're very used to like kind of building a business, it's like, well, there's really clear set of things that you do over here, and I've never really had that in my personal life. Always just been like, oh, I'll just kind of go with the flow, and you'll get where you're going to be, and yeah, thinking about what I might borrow from each of those ways of being to be better has definitely been a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did. There was a point that I noticed that I, had budgets and plans and everything for work, and I didn't have it personally, and
No,
so I did start to do budgets, but it's tricky. It's just different because I don't know why it's different, but it is. I guess there's a lot more motion. Well, not more motion, but yeah, you make different decisions like in sort of personal life, and um, yeah, it's different. With you with did you sort of set out boundaries? Did when you were having these discussions with like your business partners? Did you sort of say, okay, this is what I can give? Like, were you kind of bounded in sort of your approach in that respect?
not as such. No, I think with no. So to kind of give a bit of context of why. So one of the things that um, one of the values that we have as a company is like freedom and responsibility. So people have got the freedom to work as they wish, and the responsibility to do the things that they've said that they're going to be doing. That comes from old Patty McCord over at Netflix back in the day, who was, as they were growing, that was kind of a really big value there. And as we moved to, we did this actually pre-COVID to be a distributed remote team. Distributed because there's no office, so remote isn't strictly accurate. We had lots of conversations about how we were going to work and what was going to be important, and one of those things was this freedom and responsibility. And I think we really have like lived that, and so actually I have the freedom to work as I wish. And so for the beginning, when I came back, it was, I put in my diary that I was going to be breastfeeding in these times, kind of approximately. So if you put a meeting in there may very well be a baby on the call. Which again, I felt really lucky that I was able to do that. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
again, working from home is life changing for this whole part of life.
Mm.
Life, like absolutely life changing. But then also knowing that, again, those first bits coming out of nursery was, okay, I've got to have a day off here because they're really ill again and they can't go in. So I'm just going to change my hours and I'm going to work tonight from 6 till midnight rather than that. But because of the way we're set up, asynchronous working, distributed, good, hopefully good tools, that was feasible. So it wasn't so much of a conversation of what are the boundaries or what can we do, what we cannot do. I think all quite aligned in mission or quite aligned in kind of culture and values, but it's taken 10 years to get there.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
taken 10 years to be able to not have to have those kind of conversations because you've learnt that from the micro conversations along the way.
Yeah, yeah, and I imagine it would have been like much harder in sort of year sort of two or three or whatever of the business
Yeah, yeah,
to have that.
100%. And there's definitely like a just a shared understanding of things, because you just have worked together for so long, and
Mm.
have kind of committed to do that next bit together. Uh, mm.
No, that's That's lovely to hear that. Yeah, you were able to, that
I think it
it's
only works with trust because we've worked together for so long,
yeah,
and just we've always got through, and we've always done the things, and we've always been able to trust each other, and no one's ever broken that trust in any way. So it just works. And again, I'm
yeah,
so lucky. Like, I know that this is not the position of everyone, but it's definitely like, if I was to ever not be able to work with them again, it's the way you'd aim to be if you didn't have that, was so that you could have those conversations,
yeah.
and it could just be cool. Well, do you know what? This part of the year, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back because of this, but actually knowing that the next part of the year when you need it, someone's going to come in.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of almost, there's element of this, and we're talking about it from, sort of CEO leader like level, founder and families. But yeah, that like, and that seems like bonkers in itself. But that, are there added complications if it's more of an employment kind of, scenario? I know it's always it's tough, whatever, isn't it? It's more about you can't plan for it, the unexpectedness of things, and as we said, nursery doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be in nursery. It means that they're booked to be in, but they might be coming back home again pretty shortly.
No, and I think again, we've had people in our team who've had to go off to look after themselves. They've had to go off to look after other people, and just, again, we're a small organisation. There's like 20 of us in terms of perm teams, so we can have those one-to-one relationships where you can go, well, yeah, I know you have to be off for these few weeks because that's happening in your life, and the rest of the team will just go above and beyond to mean that you can have that off. And I think that's been incredible that everyone, again, we talk about the fact that all of us have got different responsibilities to other people in different ways. Um, I have seen just when those kind of moments of real challenge have come for different members of the team, other people have gone, yeah, cool, well, we'll step up because we know that you'll step up for us if it
Mm,
was to come to my time. Something we do at us is every 2 weeks we have our kind of all company meeting, and we have a thing called highlights and challenges. Well, it says in the tin, it's just people are sharing the last 2 weeks, their highlights and their challenges. And from like a few years of doing that, people just get to know each other. People start to be honest and vulnerable about what their actual challenges are, and people will be talking about, I've suffered this situation, and so everyone kind of has just got a knowing of, okay, well, this person's going to go and do that now, so we
mm,
step up and take that. That's been a really kind of critical part of that culture building.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, again, it comes back to that sort of trust in the in the culture that you've built already, that like kind of allows for
To happen.
um, a sort of more up to date approach, or more modern way of thinking about it, and what is employment or what it is to work. So, are there any particular like moments that you can think of, like where there was overwhelm and like how you handled it?
Constantly, every day, always trying to solve that problem every day.
Ah,
Yeah,
sounds familiar.
yeah. Like, I think never like in a state of going, oh, I actually have a handle on this and I know exactly what I'm doing all the time and everything's fine. But I think I've definitely come to realize that that's the that's the life I've chosen, and that is the journey
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
constantly being not 100% sure of this and that, and maybe those things. I tend to get overwhelmed, again, trying to understand like where I get overwhelmed and if it's at points of being very new to something. And so I kind of know that if there's going to be something I have to do that I'm quite new to, it's going to take me, if I try and approach it the same way as the things I've done before, it's going to overwhelm me. There are certain types of work that overwhelm me. We try to talk a little bit about like our comfort zone, stretch zone, and overwhelm zone. And I think, again, a big learning through this is knowing that you cannot physically be in your overwhelm zone in your personal life and your professional life at the same time. Just that's what leads to burnout. It's what leads to like
Yeah.
what leads to bad performance as work. What leads to bad performance as a person, as a human being. Like, and just understanding that, and to going, again, when I first came back from maternity leave, again, probably was in certain bits of overwhelm zone in personal life. So the projects that I maybe did a bit more of were more in my comfort zone. And again, hope that we're that all of the managers across Mastered can kind of know enough about that kind of concept to go, yeah, do you know what? If someone is in their overwhelm zone in their home life because they're dealing with this, and this, then can we for a month or a few months put them in their real comfort zone so that they can balance that out? Ultimately,
Mm.
everyone wants to be in their like stretch, that beautiful stretch zone, like as much of the time as possible. But you can only really do that if you're looking at the whole person and figuring out, well, one person's stretch zone is someone else's overwhelm zone, or vice versa. So, but no, trying to think of a specific example, which is, yeah, always
That's fine. It's
constantly
fine.
trying to figure that out.
Should we talk about sleep deprivation? Is any sort of thoughts or tips on that? How to operate when you've had about sort of 3 hours sleep?
No, and I don't think I realised it's like sleeping has been my superpower. I've always slept well. And then when I didn't sleep well, I was like, oh, this is. And then I was like, oh my God, for the last 20 years of my working life, what about all the other people that I've worked with who have been like sleep deprived? And
Yeah.
oh my God, how have they done this? I literally don't know how they do this. Um, I don't know. It's important not to say it too loudly, but I'm very fortunate that Marnie slept from very early on and I haven't had to deal with, like, I've got friends who have literally 3 hours a night, and they're doing that, and I
And still,
don't know
yeah, with like,
how. Literally, it is incredible.
mm,
It's incredible how they do it. How do you do it?
yeah, sort of similar in the respect that, yeah, the boys have been quite good. We put them in the same room now, which seems, I think they like that. Like that's helped. That's helped with the younger one. So the older one, I just think we used to have to go in the night, with a sort of 1.5 year old, but like I think he wakes up, sees his brother, goes back to sleep. It's a bit more chilled. We definitely had our times, yeah, I don't know. Like I've had Why We Sleep, the book, in my Audible to like listen to it for about the last 2 or 3 years, but the irony of actually having it, and I just wasn't in the position to like listen to it. So I've only listened to it recently, and I'm like, bloody hell, like that those kind of 2.5 years of sleep deprivation were not healthy. Yeah, but I'd say again, sort of being lucky. But there's definitely been times where even coffee can't sort it out.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely drink coffee now. I had to be 38 before I drank coffee regularly, and that was just after having the summer, having a child, iced lattes, going, oh, now I understand why people drink coffee. Oh, this is what it's about. Because I never really got it because I never needed to because I always just was fine. But now I totally and utterly 100%
A
understand.
little Kickstarter before yeah. Yeah. I try and stick to one, and there's lots of teas in there. So, um, yeah. Do you have thoughts on like strategies or things that have worked for you to sort of balance your time? Are there or even tools or tips in that respect?
I mean, so something that I do, which again I'm really fortunate to, is I work 5 days a week, but I do it over 4 days. So I have Monday to Thursday, and this, by the way, this started just because the nursery place that we got could only do 4 days, and it was a case of, okay, well, that's all we've got.
That's that.
There's not going to be some secret childcare solution that enables us to do that.
Yeah.
And so it was a case of, okay, well, I'll do 4 days. And do you know what? I've always worked a lot. And so I was going to work a lot on evenings and weekends anyway. What's been really great now is going, well, look, you literally can't work when you're looking after your beautiful, wonderful child, because you can't, because you have to like be present. You have to be mindful. You have to be. That's like why many of us. That's why we're here. We're doing
Mm.
this for
Mm.
this thing, and so having that kind of 4 days a week where it is incredibly intense, and I'm meetings constantly and doing all the things, and then working in after she goes to sleep. But having that knowing that I do have that like kind of one day that has been transformational because it has really forced me to just adjust some of the hours. I haven't had to change my behavior I don't know if I would be able to change my behavior in terms of like not just doing certain things in evenings and weekends and thinking about it, because I haven't been able to.
Yeah.
But that's worked really well. And I think the other thing that's worked really well for that is that weirdly I've like, they get that point where you switch off and suddenly like you're like, oh, I'm relaxed. And then you get that incredible burst of creativity of like, oh my God, I've still like know the problems that I've got, but I've suddenly been free of all the like detail that I've been holding on to, all the stress, and then I'm really creative. So I have found that actually those Fridays are really interesting for me because you're sitting watching someone on a swing, and then suddenly like you've got all these ideas, and
Yeah.
actually I've almost found myself a like better senior person
Mm.
because of some of that, because I like allow myself to switch off in a way that I hadn't been doing before. And
Yeah.
so I'm really trying to harness that a bit more and go
Yeah.
like, again, in that kind of Friday to Sunday night kind of period of time, I'm committed to my family, I'm committed to my work, but ultimately like allowing myself to use those 3 days to like let myself. So the kind of work I would do at a weekend I wouldn't do like a doing work. It would be like a thinking bit of work or
Yeah.
something like that.
Creative
Trying
and
to like trying to use that bit of time differently, which has been really helpful, because again, I think one of the challenges you've had of like stepping out of the doing and into the kind of leading and all of those transitions that you have to do when you're kind of growing and things. I'm always trying to use the like challenge that I have to make that better, because I think it's working, which is I'm really enjoying. I don't know if I would have been able to do that if I'd have just not had a child and had to consciously do that, to step away to do that.
yeah. Well, you're almost like creating more sort of shower moments, aren't you? It's that sort
Yeah,
of time where you just don't, you're not, you've got time away from the problem, and it just creates a, yeah. So, some reason the brain sort of decides it must be like just a stubborn mind. It just decides it's going to solve it now that you're not trying to.
exactly that. So I think I've like forced myself to create something. So that's like been a real change, and I've also really loved. I've loved that, and I think also again knowing when to finish at night. When do you finish? And again, do you finish when you have dinner? Do you finish when you don't have a, or you don't, when you're not looking after a child? It was like, well, you can kind of keep going and keep going, and then it's 9 o'clock, and then you kind of go into bed. Whereas like she gets back from nursery, and I stop until she goes to bed, and like 2 hours,
Mm,
sometimes 2 hours, an hour and a half, like in the day to just completely stop. That's like again, that's been a kind of a bit of a boundary that I don't think I would have been able to put in unless I
yeah,
had a reason to.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. No,
good.
yeah, I hear you. It is, yeah, it's a non-negotiable. But
Mm.
bath time, you can't, you can't take your laptop in the bath. It's going to get very wet. So yeah, no, that is, yeah, that's really interesting that you've kind of almost found that you're able to be more productive, because it's kind of creating. It's almost like the space that we don't create enough time for, which is, yeah, like I know friends who go for walks. I used to use running or something like for that. It's a kind of like, or fitness, a time just to almost be doing something repetitive, but is
Yeah.
not like actually working on the problem. So
Yeah. And
um,
I also find, again, parenting books and parenting like conversations not dissimilar to leadership conversations and leadership stuff. Actually, like I can be listening to a book on this over here and find parallels to like, again, a book on fostering creativity, and suddenly you realize, well, like, why am I not giving my team the space to do some of these things, because their play
mm,
is just as important as that. And yeah, I've found the kind of parallels between parenting and leading. It's been really interesting to see how you can switch and learn from both of those. Like I'm definitely a better parent because of all the things, all the people I've worked with the last decade have taught me about leading people. And I'm hoping that again, I've noticed some things that you can learn from over here that are just as relevant.
yeah, yeah. No, there are. Yeah, I completely agree. Have you, when you send like an email at sort of 10 o'clock at night, do you sort of say, I don't expect you to respond to this at this time, or
It's schedule send now, and
do you?
yeah, I've got much more militant about that. Of like, so 9 o'clock. I feel like sometimes poor team, because at 9 o'clock in the morning there's a lot of things come through, but they'll know now that I've scheduled it to come through in their working hours. Yes, because I would always say, like, please don't reply to me just because I'm working. But still, I think that kind of weird power thing, there's still but you're still emailing it to me. So I have stopped that, and I do a lot of scheduling send.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
sometimes Slack doesn't work, and I find myself like 48 hours later going, this didn't send. So.
But that's a great use of, because that, you it's been around for a bit, but it hasn't been around forever. Is it? Like quite a few of the platforms didn't do it for ages. So,
no, it really does help. I find that really helps.
are there any other sort of like resources or like groups or things that you found useful to sort of help you on this journey?
Again, great question. No, so we've got, again, great co-founders, a great team. That's been really helpful. The forum has been helpful. Again, having open. Do you know what I've really loved? Me and my husband, again, before we actually the Philippa Perry book we talked about before. We read that book before I gave birth, and having a shared context of something to have discussions around was amazing. And we've done that a little bit since. Being able to have some of those shared conversations, I think we could do that a bit more as well in the future, just because it gives you like a reference to both to have.
Yeah,
kind of create discussions to go, what do you think about this, and did you agree with those parts, rather than just kind of wild conceptual conversations. What else? No. I mean, the other thing that I guess is I found really useful is I found maternity leave was an amazing way to step out of, to basically go, ultimately my job is to almost not be needed. Like my ultimate job is to just give away constant responsibilities and delegate, and to just find new work for myself. And I found maternity leave was an incredible way to do that, because I had to, and it allowed all these other people to kind of step up and do other things. I'd like to get that back again somehow. I don't know how, I don't have another child just to go on maternity leave, but kind of how I can kind of force in some way that kind of taking a step out to allow other people to step in. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant for everyone else. It was brilliant for me. I actually did it. So I'd love to find a way to be able to do that more proactively without hand being forced because of some personal situation, because I found so many benefits from that.
Yeah, it's a really good. I mean, it's almost it's an ideology. It's how I believe you can build a business. Is to always be making yourself redundant, and to sort of do that, you need to be able to so like work out how it works sometimes, but then like enable other people like to step into it. I guess there's always something around information and the flow of information, and like allowing and making sure people have got the same information as you have, so that they can make those decisions. So there's definitely something about that, because with you being present there, it's almost like you become like it's the top of the bottle again, isn't it? You become the bottleneck, because information starts to flow through your inbox and you again, and you're, as you said at the start, you're doing a lot of meetings, so you're the one with the big picture.
Yeah. So no solutions there, just questions of how to do that.
Yeah. No, but it's a really important like realization, and again, I don't have the answer to it. Tried to do quite a lot of automating, and like a lot of automation where I could, so that things just worked. And I mean, that's again like a basic sort of, if it can be automated, then it probably should be, because you reduce sort of like human error and that type of thing. But I do love, the dream is the dream a single, like one person solopreneurship in a business. But I loved all the TikToks over Christmas of the solopreneur office party with like one person at the bar and just having a beer by themselves. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is the dream. It's interesting, isn't it? Because can one person be everything to, as you probably realize, we all have like really like the skills that we have, and that's why co-founding and having like partners is so powerful, because
Yeah.
they're going to have, they're going to bring something to the table. Like everyone has a different lens they look through.
100%. 100%. So
What advice would you give to someone who was thinking about sort of, or indeed are on this journey, so they've got to support, or they've got a lot of needs at home, and also either are on an entrepreneurial journey, or thinking about doing it.
mm.
Where would you sort of start with advising someone?
I mean, I'm just thinking about everything I've just said, and I feel like the theme across a load of that is just not doing it on your own. Is actually like you just. I mean, you can, but you also can't. And actually, I'm the back in the day of like it takes a village or it takes a community of look how often our communities our villages aren't the same as they were. Like it's not for many of us, our families don't live in the kind of close proximity. You don't have that kind of level of very practical support, but that doesn't mean that you don't need the support of the person at the end of the phone, the person, but across the whole bit of life. I think it's quite difficult to just have again the support at home, but not to have it at work. I think through all that level. Now, the asking for help bit, so hard because you have to be vulnerable. You have to admit to yourself that you can't do it, but you kind of it's so, it feels like such a position of strength to be able to say I can't do it and be fine with that. So you have to get to that place where you can do it. So yeah, there's something about having the people around you that you can like fundamentally rely on in some way, whoever that is, friends, family, chosen family, founders, whatever that is, and knowing who those people are. And also knowing that at some point they're going to need you in that same way and being ready and available for them. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's something there about not doing it alone.
yeah, no, no, I love that. It is, yeah.
What about you? What would you say?
Yeah, well, I was also going to say, like, sometimes it's not always like the option either. Like, with single parents, I'm like, I just don't know how they do it. Like, it's just, completely hats off to them. It's just so hard. But yeah, yeah, like, well, have had like the benefit of having grandparents who've been like involved. That helps loads. Not necessarily nearby, but there's sort of we've got a rhythm where they sort of come every couple of weeks, and that works really well. Yeah, my advice is is don't. This is about like ambition and like reach, and just be realistic, because I didn't change my ambition of like what I was trying to do, and that created internal pressure. That was where I think I was most derailed by it, because I thought I could, I basically started a business almost at the same time, within months, and of the older one being born, and it was 2020, and it was just like bonkers. Anyway, um, yeah, and it has taken me like it's taken me over 3 years to realize that I just I don't have the same capacity, and I know to some extent I have gone down the route of solopreneurship to some extent. I don't have the same capacity as I did. You
Yeah,
can't, if it goes wobbly in one part of as you said, like in home life, really hard to like pick it back up again in work. So yeah, try it. Seeking help and seeking like to do it with, like, go on the journey with others, I think is such a powerful, you know it's such a powerful message in this. So would I do anything differently? I don't know. I think it's almost like that's been one of the learns that you know you couldn't have told me.
yeah,
I had to learn it. I couldn't be told that it was going to be hard. I mean, like, this is the thing with this. We're talking about like it is tough, but it's also incredibly amazing, and I wouldn't want to put anyone off. It's an incredible thing, but it's also, yeah. So super happy, but it's super hard.
super happy and super hard. And yeah, Grace, when my other co-founder had again talks at some point about going, yeah, we've chosen this. And I think there's a reality here of at any point we could step off and could choose not to do it, and having to remind ourselves is that no, we choose this. We decide that this is the way we want to do it. And I think, again, to have the freedom and flexibility to be able to choose that is an absolute privilege.
Mm,
There's a whole conversation about whether I have, again, a huge admiration for parents who are embarking on some kind of VC based journey
mm,
with all of the kind of very high growth companies and how that is possible. I'm not sure that. I don't know how that works. I think that's a very different journey as well. And I think you have to make different sacrifices in different ways. I think the ability to choose your own growth trajectory for your company as well as for yourself is like the ultimate freedom and the
yeah.
ultimate ability to do that. And I don't think we've been a bit to your kind of end. I don't think the scale of our ambition has changed. I think the timeline on which we believe we can achieve that has changed.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And I think that's really important. That, I mean, that's the honesty, isn't it? Of, okay, we still want to, change the world, but
Yeah.
not in the next year.
Yeah. And then you realize actually that time is very, what is time anyway? And so, do you know what? 3 years, like 1 year, 3 years, actually, in the grand scheme of a life, it's all the same. So it is okay, maybe, that something takes a little bit longer. But if you've been drilled into that mindset of no, you have to achieve this much growth every year to be able to do this and do this, I think there's some incongruence there that I think can have, again, like you said, some real challenges internally. Um, so yeah, getting used to that and just having these kind of conversations, talking about it, not knowing, we don't know half the answers for ourselves, but knowing that you can have these, keep having those conversations along the way, and someone somewhere will will have an answer that might just help you tonight or tomorrow that makes things 1% easier.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I actually, like, in a recent interview, they were on a VC funded journey and had got to Series D, and still on that journey. But yeah, like, he interestingly didn't step into the CEO role until, like, I guess, because you go through the S curve of growth. So the business has gone through like a number of S curves, and I don't think it gets any, like, necessarily any less turbulent, but it's sort of settled the direction and the understanding of, like, where the product meets the market and all of that has. And so he stayed in CTO and then moved into CEO. It still has a young family, but, like, at a point when it was like a slightly different time to trying to stabilize it in
And
the
there's
first
found
place.
some product market fit. Oh yeah, that's a very different world. I think that kind of chaos, and we all ultimately operate in chaos in some way, but operate in the kind of complete chaos and volatile, uncertain, VUCA world of where you don't know what the revenue that's coming in because you don't know the products, which you don't know the things, like that level of uncertainty, with also being in a place where you have a brand new child or a brand new life situation that you have never done before, overwhelms zone massively. And yeah, um, would be a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Look, we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to, like, share with anyone, or any, like, sort of closing thoughts, or are you? Uh,
No, it's
uh,
it's been a hell of a journey. I wouldn't change any of it, and I'm looking forward to making some new mistakes.
Amazing. Look, I really enjoyed the conversation, and you've given me loads of things to reflect on, and yeah, I probably need to do. There's that element of what is the next year? How do we kind of, like, how do I be who I need to be for the boys, um, and that is tough. It's like, there's I guess I also, like, an older. I feel like I'm 45, so I've had a lot of time of just, like, I guess it's like being used to doing the things that I want to do. And, what was I, 42 when had our oldest, and yeah, that was that. So that's kind of like a long time of experiencing, a lot of kite surfing, a lot of windsurfing, a lot of whatever, and that sort of stop. But I can slowly see it coming back again. So I guess we should speak again in about sort of 4 years' time and see what it's like when they're a bit older.
Yes, very much so. And again, interesting journeys to be had and conversations to be had.
Yeah, I would love that. Like, let's book it in. So, okay, look, there you have it. I really loved like the bit about life. You know, the sort of series of transitions. Love that. It's such a powerful kind of the life needs sort of punctuation. I love that kind of way of thinking. You know. Be aware of like overwhelm when it's in work and at home, like, you know, be willing to ask for help. I think that was like a really strong like message there, Perri. Loved embracing freedom and responsibility as well. So amazing that you've built that into your business, its foundations. So hope the listeners feel like that you can go out and maybe slightly like, with even if it's just knowing that like other people are going through it, like the juggle of business and family, I think that like really helps. And, these conversations and speaking to people about your situation can really help. So, finally, thank you to listeners for being here in Perri. That was amazing. Thanks so much. Hope everyone feels a little bit wiser this Wednesday as a result of joining. So take care. Bye.